You're listening to Scotty and Andrew, and this is Fun with Horror.
Every year, hundreds of young people travel the country and disappear. God help those who get caught in the tourist trap.
Okay. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Scotty.
This is our first podcast.
This is our first podcast. This is exciting.
This is exciting. This is fun with horror.
This is fun with horror. I gotta tell you real quick before we start, too. I gotta tell you what I bought
Tell
today
me.
in preparation for this.
Wait, you bought something?
I did. I was at, we were at the store and I saw a t-shirt and it just is Freddy Krueger and it says Nightmare on Elm Street. And I was like, I'm gonna buy that so I can wear it for podcast. No one will see it, but I'm wearing it.
Wait. Where did you buy it?
Walmart.
How bad is this shirt?
Oh, it's awesome.
Is it really good? I just imagine like the worst, cheesiest like Nightmare on Elm Street.
No.
And now we're horror fans.
No, I saw it. I was like, since that's our picture is, Freddy holding Sam's sucker, I was like, I gotta
Yes.
get this. I need to wear something fun for our first podcast.
So is this how we're gonna start every podcast, saying what we're wearing?
Yes, obviously.
Okay, well, I am wearing a T-shirt that you would appreciate. It has the emblem, the sign of the slaughtered lamb on it.
Whoa.
You remember what that's from?
I don't. I'm trying to remember. Slaughtered Lamb.
It's a very popular movie, but it's the kind of shirt that if somebody in public is like, "Yeah, man," I'm like, well, they'd have to say the name of the movie too. If they just say, "Yeah, man," I don't know what they're saying that for.
Yeah, yes.
But yeah, American Werewolf in London.
Oh.
It's the famous pub
Oh, that's awesome.
where they stop in. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I know we both have a mutual friend who in fact, I think he did recognize it right away and loved it when I wore it to his place.
That's
Because
awesome.
it's one of his favorite movies. But anyway,
Yeah. That's
why
awesome.
are we doing a podcast?
Well, that's a great question. Recently, you and I were talking on the phone.
Yes.
Well, it was funny. We were talking horror movies, and there was one movie in particular that either of us hadn't seen, which was Scare Me.
Yes.
And neither of us had seen it, and it was your idea, which I love. You said, why don't we watch it this week and then discuss it at the end of the week? We'll watch it, at our wherever we are, separately, and then talk about it. And we did, and we had a blast talking about it. As always, anytime we talk, we have a blast.
Yes.
But we talked about it, and then you thought, we should do this as a podcast, or that's what you said. I was like, yeah, we should.
I think we both said it.
Yeah.
I feel like I was thinking it, and I seem to remember you saying it, and it was something we were both thinking. It was both in our consciousness that, like, let's just do a podcast where we're just talking about the movie that we give each other
Right.
every week. And, I mean, it was a good idea already for us to... So let's go back a little bit.
Yeah.
Andrew and I are best buddies, best pals, best friends.
That's right.
Andrew and I met in Los Angeles when he worked at a coffee shop nearby where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And we became really good friends pretty much immediately.
You want to say
And
what our
over-
first conversation was that got us to be buddies?
No, I want you to.
You want me to?
Yes, I want you to say what that conversation was.
Well,
It wasn't horror movies.
It wasn't. But however, there's a horror aspect to what we talked about for sure, which was Arkham Asylum, the video game, and in particular, the level where you run from Killer Croc.
Yes, I love that level.
It is so fun. I actually replayed it recently.
Did you?
Yep, and it was funny. I had Kylie kiddo. Can I say that?
Kiddo.
My
Yes,
kiddo.
you can say that.
And my wife. I was like, should we say? No last names. No, my kiddo and my wife were out in the living room, and I said, hey, I'm about to this level that made Scotty love, and I buddies, made us friends. And so, sure enough, I popped it on and played it and had them watch, and they thought it was cool. To
And
me,
by the way, let's give some credit to Kylie for doing our amazing little intro
yay!
that everybody, all three of you heard. During the opening music. Yeah, she was amazing. So,
Yes, thank you.
but that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's how we met. That we talked about that, and
Yeah.
like I said, I immediately, or I didn't say this, but I immediately after we talked about it, went out and bought a PlayStation 3 and that game because of how you made it sound. You made it sound so fun. So I gotta go get this. So I did.
It was so fun.
It was. It was a blast.
One of my favorite game experiences ever. But anyway, yeah. So eventually, though, you made a life choice and decided to move back to Washington.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds so weird, life choice.
Right.
But yeah, you decided LA wasn't doing it for you anymore, basically, and you
Right.
moved back to Washington State, and it's awesome because we have, sometimes a friend moves away and it becomes long distance and friendships kind of wane a little bit, but I feel like our friendship has maybe even gotten stronger.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
whenever we talk, we have so much fun. So that's one of the reasons we decided to start playing this horror movie, like, I guess, game
Right. Yeah.
with each other. It gave us an excuse to catch up on horror movies. We both have a backlog of movies we haven't seen in a long time. And so we get to watch these movies, and then we get to talk to each other every week
Yep.
and have a good time. But we had such a good time talking about it that, yeah, we wanted to record it and see if other people have fun listening to us talk about stupid things and movies. And
Just
but
be
yeah,
awesome.
and I know I would love. Okay, so let me go back again
Yes.
to my own personal life.
Yeah, please. I want to hear.
It's not too personal, but like, I am the type of person that if something doesn't really grab me, I'm not invested in it. And I've had ideas of doing podcasts. I mean, podcasts aren't a new thing anymore. They've been around
Right.
for a while. I've had ideas. I've had times where I almost started podcasts, but I never felt that, I guess, that grip of an idea.
Right.
And I always wanted it to be something somewhat original and something that, really grabbed me. And this is the first time that an idea for a podcast really did grab me. And I think, I don't know, for me, one of the important things is going in, not really, I mean, obviously we want people to listen,
Mm-hmm.
but if they don't, that's fine. We're still talking about horror movies and we're still having a great time.
Right. Yeah.
So,
I love that. And also, just so people know, and I don't know if we did say this, but how we kind of set it up where each week we're going to pick a movie. So, like, one
Yeah.
week you'll pick the movie and say, this is what we're watching. And then the next
Yes.
week I would pick the movie. And then discuss it, of course, at podcast time when we can do this.
yeah, and there are very few rules
Mhm.
to this, but one of the main things that we set out to do was watch movies that we hadn't seen.
Right.
So one of our main rules is, it's not really a rule, it's just a loose guideline, is we're going to try and pick movies that we want to see that we haven't seen.
Mm-hmm.
So, movies like the entire Friday the 13th series, we've obviously seen
Yes.
seen those already.
Yep.
So that's maybe not something we'll talk about those for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we'll definitely hit on horror movies that are popular, that we've seen many times. But for the movie of the week,
Mhm.
if you will, it's going to mostly be movies that we haven't seen that we've been needing to see or wanting to see. And sometimes it'll be a movie that one of us have seen, the other person hasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, though, one of the only real rules of this is that whoever presents the movie is we're going to present it right here on the podcast.
Right. Yeah.
So we're going to have like maybe 2 or 3 movies that we're thinking about in a little list. And like, for instance, the movie that we're going to talk about this podcast, Andrew came up with.
Right.
And I agreed to it. So at the end of this podcast, I'll come up with a movie. And if Andrew absolutely says, no, I don't want to watch that movie, or I've already seen it, I saw it last week, I'm not prepared to watch it again right now, then we'll go on to another movie.
Right.
But by the end of the podcast, we will know what movie we're going to watch the following week. You, the audience, will also know.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, and I guess another rule that we should talk about is spoilers.
Yes, definitely.
This is something we discussed, especially talking about the podcast. We are going to spoil the movie that we watch.
Yes. Oh, yes.
We're not going to hold back. So, for instance, this week, what's the movie we're talking about this week, Andrew?
This week, Scotty, thank you for asking. We are talking about Tourist Trap, which is 1978. 1979. I'm sorry, 1979. 1979's
Right.
Tourist Trap. So that was the pick I had this week. Something I'd seen the cover of, and I'd seen a little, maybe snippet of, and went, "What is that movie?
What is that movie?
What is that?" And I need to see it.
And yeah, and I agreed.
Yep.
So that's the movie we watched, and that's the movie we're going to talk about. And yeah, we're not going to worry about spoilers. However, if we end up talking about other movies, I'm very sensitive to spoilers.
Me too.
So if we end up talking about, like, say, we start talking about Friday the 13th, the remake, you know, I just movie off the top of my head since I was already thinking about Friday the 13th.
Yes.
We will not spoil it. We'll be careful. We'll be careful with other movies.
Right.
So, and if we do end up thinking about spoiling a movie, if we have to say something that spoils any part of the movie, there will be a warning.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
I tell you, I'm not a fan of, podcasts that are like, hey, we're about to spoil this movie, so if you don't want this movie spoiled, you might want to fast forward. It's if you're in the car, how easy is it to fast forward? It's not
Right.
always that easy. So, yeah, we'll be careful is what we're saying.
Yes, for sure. And that's one thing too, is if you're listening to this and we mention the next week's movie, whatever it may be, if you're gonna be kind of watching it with us, so that you can listen to the podcast the next week and hear what we have to say, since you had just watched it as well. If throughout that week, if it's something that you've seen and we haven't quite yet, if you did post something to the podcast or anything, we'd appreciate it if there was no spoilers, and for others as
True
well.
that.
If anyone hasn't seen it, we just don't want anything spoiled. We want everyone to go into this, with a blank slate, not knowing much. So, yeah.
Of course, I think Andrew and I will also be very cognizant of that, and
Right. Yep.
I mean, I'm pretty sensitive to it, so once we have some of these things set up, I won't be reading comments until after we watch the movie.
Right.
So yeah, just everybody be careful of spoilers. Anyway.
Cool. So give us your or one thing I'd like to hear. What is your why do you like horror, Scotty? What got you into horror?
Why do I like horror? Okay, well,
Do you like that segue?
that was such a good segue.
Thank you.
So, all right, well, in a way, my dad kind of got me into horror. And I recently mentioned that to him, and he said, "Well, I'm sorry about that." And But I was very thankful to him. I think it started back when I was a wee lad. There used to be cheesy horror movies on Saturday nights at midnight on one of the stations. Movies like Trilogy of Terror, Blackula meets Frankenstein, stuff like that. And my dad would record them on VHS, and because I'm a little bit older than you, Andrew.
Oh no, I had VHS.
I don't. You know what a VHS is?
We recorded movies all the time, man. Free weekend.
Okay.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we would watch the movie the next day. So the movie that did it to me, though, the movie I always feel like was the movie that got me into horror movies, was Poltergeist.
Beautiful.
It's not a super scary movie by today's standards, but when you're like 9 or 10 years old, it can be a little frightening. And my parents watched it. They watched it. They rented it. And I wanted to watch it. And they told me, my dad said, Scotty, now this movie, it's a bit rough for you. So if I decide to let you watch it, you've got to promise me that you will not end up in our bed tonight. And, of course, me wanting to watch the movie really badly, I said, yeah, that's fine.
Awesome.
And so my dad and I watched Poltergeist on a Saturday. I believe it was a Saturday afternoon. By halfway through the movie, I ended up in my dad's chair with him, curled up next to him.
Aww.
And but I loved the movie. I absolutely loved it. And that night, I slept in my own bed by myself, and I had no problem doing so. And from that moment on, I became a horror movie fan, and eventually a fanatic. And and movies would come on HBO, Cinemax, any horror movie in the 80s that I could get my little VHS hands on, I would record and then watch later. And years later, horror movies just they feel like home. They give me a warmth when I watch them. It's really weird to say that because of the content of most of these movies, but yeah, like it gives me an inner calm, when I watch these movies. And yeah, and if a movie can scare me even more, and that's something we'll definitely talk about in other podcasts. But Andrew, what got you into horror movies?
Well, first of all, that was a beautiful story. I really like that.
Thank you.
That you and your dad got you into that. He apologized. Which
I think a rainbow just started shining in my apartment.
Good. I'm glad I could do that for you. But I think that's great, and I like that he apologized. When really, as a horror fan, I'd be thanking him. That's not an apology-worthy thing. That's a thank you.
Yeah. Well, my dad definitely got away from that type of movie and stuff as he got older.
Fair enough.
So
right on. So to get back to your question, so how I got into it.
Yes.
I grew up a scaredy cat. I mean, if anything looked different, sounded different, I was scared of it. I mean, I was scared. At the beginning where it says in some of those older movies, it said THX and it comes on and it goes, it makes that hum noise. That scared me.
Advertising.
Yes, that scared me. I mean, I was a scaredy cat. Anytime I've told this story before to people when I talk about horror. I mean, anytime a Child's Play commercial would come on the TV at our house, I'd run behind our TV and I'd sit in the fetal position. I'd cover my ears. I'd close my eyes. And I would ask whoever's watching when it was over to tell me, because I couldn't handle it. I just couldn't. I mean, everything scared me. And it wasn't until probably about high school time, I was watching, it was Halloween 4 or 5.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think it wasn't even the first one. It was 4 or 5. And no spoilers here, but, it was... I sat there and I kind of went, this is fun. This isn't, this is kind of a rush. It wasn't scary necessarily, like, I'm going to have nightmares. It was more, it was more a rush. It was
Yeah.
fun. It was euphoric, I guess. Um, but I watched a few, and then that was kind of it until I moved to Los Angeles, and I worked at that coffee shop you mentioned earlier. And every
Yeah.
Monday we would get tips, and every Monday I would go to FYE because um, they had all these used videos and all these used DVDs. Sorry,
Do they still have FYE where you live?
they do somewhere in Washington State.
Because
Yeah.
I don't know where the nearest one is here. I'm sure there is one because I think they still exist,
Yeah.
but I don't know where it is. I'll have to look that up. But keep going, keep going.
No, you're good. So I would go and get usually just random DVDs, but eventually what I saw one time was, actually it was a new copy of it, but it was so cheap. It was Nightmare on Elm Street 1 through 4. It was like a little case of all 4 movies. And I was like, I'm gonna try this.
Nice.
Yeah, and I
love it.
went home. I was done with work. I popped it in, and I sat there, and I demolished them. I just was like, what have I been missing? This is awesome. And the next week, they didn't have 5 through 8, or 5 through Freddy versus Jason. But the next week they
Right.
did, and I ran there, I saw it, I bought it, and I went home and demolished those.
Wait, so the next one did have Freddy versus Jason? Or
It
no?
did, yep.
Oh,
Yep,
okay.
Yep, it was in that
And
4
had you seen the Friday the 13th movies at this point?
No. So I know. I did it backwards.
That's okay.
Yeah, it worked eventually, and then that got me. I think that was kind of what spiraled me though, is because I went, Jason. Now I need to watch, Friday the 13th, and so I went back and got those, and I mean honestly, by the end of it, I had about 1.5 million DVDs sitting in my apartment, all horror, because it was just fun. And since then, I mean, it's just anytime I watch it, it's just a good time. I don't even know how to explain it. Like you said, it's just fun. It's fun to do. It's fun.
It's fun. It's just fun. I agree. Yeah, it's fun. It's weird. And, last year was, well, we're still in it, but
Right.
the whole pandemic thing, one of the things that I wasn't sure of at the beginning of the pandemic was how much I would want to watch a horror movie during horrific times,
Right.
I guess. But one thing I loved is that it was cathartic to watch horror movies. It was
Right.
it was still an escape, and it was great. And I found so much solace watching certain horror movies during that time, even ones that are like depressing and just foreboding and gloomy, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's been great.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. I love it.
I think now is a good time.
Andrew.
I think now
Yeah.
we should start talking about the movie, our movie of the week, which again is 1979's Tourist Trap. And I'd like to
Tourist Trap.
Tourist Trap. I'd like to hear.
Well, first of all, Andrew, why did you pick this movie?
Well, like I mentioned, I saw that somewhere recently, and I'm not 100% sure where. I saw the image, the cover, and I saw the picture of this like mannequin face on a person, and I went, "What is that?" I've never seen that. I hadn't really ever even heard of it, I don't think.
Yeah.
And I thought that looks really creepy. That's the movie. That's what I need to watch, because that's something I've never seen. I hadn't really heard of it, but boy, did that poster do it for me.
And
so,
I'd never
yeah.
seen the movie.
Right. Yes.
So when you mentioned that movie to me, I was down. And one thing I remember is video stores back in the day, and many horror fans have talked about this, but video stores were so wonderful back then.
Yes.
The horror movie section was just magical. It had all these crazy box covers and box art, and I just remember seeing all these, like, I'll never forget a lot of these movies. that I saw that I never actually saw the movie, but I remember browsing and seeing the box art when I was in the video store. And Tourist Trap was one of those for me. So yeah, I was definitely excited to watch it. And I guess it's okay to say we watched it on Shudder.
Yes. Yep.
I will watch a movie wherever I can find it. This one was only available on Shudder that I saw.
Yeah.
It might be available on Prime, I don't know, but Shudder was, the easiest. So, and the quality is not great.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I was like, ooh. The resolution is definitely not 1080p.
Yep. Yeah.
It was like, maybe, I don't know, it seemed like 360p at the beginning of the movie.
I would agree with you on that. Yes.
I definitely did not watch Tourist Trap on my beautiful 4K 65-inch screen. I watched it on my iPad, which I think was perfect for Tourist Trap.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yep, I think
So
that's perfect.
uh
But what did you think?
So-
What did you think of the movie?
you know what?
What are your?
I was pleasantly surprised.
Yes.
I actually really enjoyed the movie. And I wonder if this can be an official rating system, but I judge movies based on cell phone usage. Usage. I base movies on cell phone usage. If I find myself taking out my cell phone, which I actually hate during movies, even at home,
I'm the same.
if I take my phone out, it shows me that this movie does not have my attention fully. I can honestly say that I only took out my phone maybe one time during the movie.
Wow.
But, I mean, where do we start?
I know.
Okay, I guess, so for anybody out there that hasn't seen Tourist Trap, I thought it was a slasher movie. I thought it was a full-on, I had no idea what the movie was actually about when we talked about it. So I thought it was a slasher movie about a guy in the weird mask on the cover, or a girl.
Yeah.
But what it ends up being about is these young people that end up at, like, I guess what the movie is called, Tourist Trap.
Yeah.
I knew right away that they were in the hills of Los Angeles.
Beautiful. Yeah.
I don't know where they were supposed to be in the movie. I can't remember, but it was definitely the Los Angeles canyons. Yes. And they end up at this backwater museum where weird things start happening.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, there's Tanya Roberts. And I was like, whoa, this is Tanya Roberts. I know her. And then all of a sudden, there was Chuck Connor.
Yes.
Like, I was like, what? Like, what's Chuck Connor doing in this movie? This is crazy. And so, yeah, the kills start right away.
Right. Yep.
So, I forget. I have IMDb right here.
Yeah.
And this doesn't help at all. I think it might have been Woody.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. He
Was
goes
that
in the
him?
room by himself.
Yeah, he finds this, like, what is usually the quintessential gas station in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
And he goes inside like you do and goes into the back rooms like anybody that goes into an abandoned gas station would do.
Yep.
Like, let me just go into rooms where I was not invited. And then I was so confused. Like, there's mannequins in the room,
Yes.
and they start, like, talking, and I was like, wait a second, is this a haunted, like, tourist location movie? And I'll be honest, by the end of the movie, I was still confused.
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
But in a good way. Yeah, things start flying off the wall. And I gotta say, for 1979, I thought it was pretty good special effects.
Do you know how they did it?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, okay.
But why don't you tell us?
I have it here. Well, they put everything. So they filmed with the cabinet nailed to the ceiling, right? And the crew was on top of the ceiling, and they were throwing the items down at him.
At the actor?
At the actor, yeah, to give the illusion. So,
Well, there you go.
yep, it was. So there's your
And
movie magic.
I'll give absolute credit to the movie. It does not. I mean, maybe if I looked at it again, knowing that,
Right.
it doesn't really look like a cabinet nailed to a ceiling. It
Right.
looks like things are like flying out at this guy, and he's got the most amazing scream. He's so scared. It's so beautiful. I was like, wow, this guy is going for it. He's taking
Commitment.
his little side part. And the old saying, "There's no small parts, just small actors."
That's right.
Yeah, he went for it. It was great. So then, his friends who don't really care that he's gone, they're just passively. I think they passively were like, "Oh, where's Woody?"
Yeah.
I don't know. They just seem to go on with their vacation without him. But they end up somewhere around the same place. I don't think it was the same place. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really.
The movie
know either.
was a little confusing.
Yep.
But there's a mansion, and there is a museum, quote unquote, and then there's Chuck Connors.
Yes.
Why are you kids? What are you kids doing around here? Don't go out at night.
Yeah. Yes.
And of course, as you do, the kids do exactly what they're told not to do.
Yep.
They wander out.
Yep.
I don't know. Do we need to explain the whole plot here? Basically, I kind of feel like you do in this movie because it was so confusing.
Yes, I would agree. And it even ends confusing. I mean, there's no.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
we'll get to the ending,
Yeah, you're
I guess.
right. You're
but,
right. Yeah.
I mean, Chuck Connor is the crazy, the weird old guy. And then there's this mansion where there's all these mannequins, and when the kids end up in rooms with mannequins, the mannequins, like, mouths open and close.
Yeah, and the eyes move.
The eyes move.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, this is a haunted mansion. I love this. This is not what I thought it was.
Right.
And I'll be honest, the movie didn't scare me, but it was extremely creepy.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. It was super creepy at the beginning. And that was good. I love that. But then I was just confused. I don't really hold it against the movie for being confused.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I get that. I agree.
Yeah, so then there's like a main guy in the mask that you see, and he utters the famous line, Andrew.
Why don't you like me?
Oh, yes. His voice.
His voice.
And you find out, first of all, that this is Chuck Connor. Okay, so Chuck Connors plays Davey, by the way. You find out that it's Davey's brother.
Yes.
And I think I knew right away that
Oh, yeah.
it wasn't his brother.
Oh yeah.
Who was it?
It was Davey.
It was Davey.
It was Davey. And it was one of those things where it's like, you notice how Spider-Man and Peter Parker are never in the same room together. It was
Yeah.
that. Like, anytime he left, all of a sudden, the bad guy's around.
Yeah. But there was still this question, like oh man, there were people that were captured by him, but previously to our heroes, I guess you'd call them.
Yes, yeah, that works.
And one girl dies a pretty kind of a horrific death, even though it's not gory. So that's the other thing. This movie was rated PG back in the day.
Yeah.
Not R, PG, and there is hardly any gore. I think there was a little bit of blood when Woody was killed, right?
Yeah,
Maybe?
you're right. I think maybe a little, but you're right. There was like no gore in this.
Because you hear like the blood dripping,
Right. Yep.
and then you see the blood.
Yep.
And yeah, and wow, where do I go from here? How did the girl tell us how the girl died?
Well, so, so when we first, and this is actually when we first really get to hear. That's when we get that line from Davy.
Yeah, during that scene.
Yeah. Wait, what?
During that scene.
During that scene, yeah. But he puts this, I guess, wax,
Right.
or
That's
whatever
right.
you
Yes.
call it, all over her face to essentially suffocate her.
Yeah, he's turning her into a mannequin.
Yeah. Which also, I'm gonna throw this out there as a side note.
Please.
Okay, so he puts it on her face, her whole face, right, and it covers her eyes. Yet, every other mannequin there, their eyes are able to like look around. So I was like, what? Is she different? Like, what? He's obviously done this to many people before. So
That was a little confusing.
I was confused there. I went, I guess maybe she's different. I don't know. But yeah, that was actually a really horrible way to die in a horror movie, is just to be
Yeah.
suffocated by wax.
Yeah, and the way he does it kind of slowly too. It's like
Yeah.
it covers her eyes, and then did it cover her mouth or nose
Both.
first?
Oh,
Both. Okay. I feel like it was one of the two first, and
Right.
then he's like, and now it'll cover you. Now you won't be able to breathe.
Yeah.
Whatever he said, you can say it better than I did.
No, he says that, and he also talks about how painful it's gonna be. It's
Yeah.
really menacing. He's
Yeah,
like-
it's very menacing.
Yeah, it's dark. That was pretty dark.
So, so that happens, and then I mean, I'm not even going to go into it, but there's a whole like the rest of the movie climax where our heroes are trying to, I guess, get away, and but it was good. Like by the end of the movie, though, here's the confusing part.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of the movie, I wasn't sure why things were moving by themselves, and he mentions at a certain point that he has powers.
Yes.
So, at that point, you realize that he's got psychic powers, abilities.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, that still doesn't seem to explain a lot of the things that happened in the movie. But I guess it did.
Yeah.
Like, he moved a lot of
He
things.
did move a lot of things. Which was another point I had, too, is, he's chasing this main girl. Why didn't he use his powers to stop her? Like, she's, like, booking it. I mean, if he's able to move things, why not just stop
Yeah,
her?
he was tapped out.
Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah. So, well, okay. So basically, I mean, let's get back to it. What
Yeah.
I thought of the movie, I liked it.
Right.
I thought it was a little bit creepy at times.
Mm-hmm.
It held my interest through most of the movie. Even though there was a lack of gore, that
Mhm.
doesn't really bother me, as long as it's effective in the way things are done. And the kills were very effective.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the acting was fine.
Yeah.
It wasn't horrible for a movie of that budget.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciated the fact that it wasn't a straight out slasher movie, even if part of the last act of the movie is your quintessential horror movie chase scene,
Right.
Yep. So, yeah. I kind of dug it. What did you think, Andrew? I'm scared.
No, I actually agree with pretty much all your points. As you were talking, I was kind of thinking about this, where did I like it more because I knew that you and I were going to talk about it? So I got that
Right.
excitement. Was that part of it? Or did
I mean, come on, that definitely was.
Right,
Because
yeah.
we actually, when we started talking about doing the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
let's be a little transparent. We actually said we could talk about Tourist Trap now, or we could save it for the podcast. And we saved it.
Right.
Like, Tourist Trap was actually our movie 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
But it was such a fun movie to watch, and we felt like it would be a fun movie to talk about, so we decided to save it for the podcast. So
Yep.
I think that definitely had an effect, and that's totally valid and fine. I don't mind that at all.
Yeah. Okay. And even now, I think, you know, like this movie now has a special place in my heart because of this. As silly
Yes.
as silly as the moments where like this movie means something to me now, just because of this, which is
Even if
fun.
we only do one episode of this podcast,
Right.
it will be about Tourist Trap.
Yep, exactly. But
Why don't you like me?
why don't you like me? This and that scene in general, like
So good.
any other scene, it sounded like he was sitting there at the moment. That first scene when we hear he does like 3 lines like that,
Yeah.
and it was clearly done at another time, because the ADR
Oh,
I felt
ADR,
for,
yeah.
the ADR for it was just like, even I feel like his voice changed a little later on. I was like, whoa, well, that one scene though. Oh,
I want to know if that was Chuck Connor's voice.
ooh, good question.
I feel like it wasn't. I
Yeah.
feel like it might have been somebody else, but
I would agree with that. It probably isn't. But I mean, overall, I'm with you. I had fun with it. I thought the lack of gore was fine. I thought we'll talk music soon.
oh yes,
I think.
yes, we will talk about music.
But I'm with you. There was some genuinely creepy moments in that movie. Anytime I thought the mannequins' mouths opened and they sang, they kind of
Yeah. Oh, I was like,
really weird.
wait, was that creepy or was that just like, what the hell?
I think both. Like, I sat there and paused it the first time, and I sat there for a second going, what am I watching right now? Because this is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, that's how I was too. Like well, there was the singing, but just when the mannequins were talking in the very first scene,
Yeah,
I remember
yes.
I was kind of like, just like, okay, this is a movie. And then like they started talking, my eyes just like got wide, and I'm like, oh my God, yes.
Right?
Oh, what are we watching? This is great.
It's
And I
so
got
good.
super excited.
Yeah, I'm with you. I did too. There was, yeah. I also really liked, like you said, acting. Yeah, acting was fine. I don't think anything was like terrible. I really did like though. Speaking of songs, we'll talk more songs. But the one song I dug that was pretty creepy was his mannequin wife that he made. And anytime they turned on, it's like this bell. I don't know, bells or something. I don't even know
Yeah.
what it was, but I kind of dug the song. It was weird.
She was the one in the main museum.
Right.
right?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. And anytime they turned the light on to her, it would do this, these bells. But it was
So
kind of
bad.
eerie and creepy. And it's creepy because you're looking at this, like, mannequin woman.
Yeah.
I don't know. I had a fun time with this movie. I really
I had a
did.
great time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
And
fun.
it
Yeah.
it didn't give into a lot of the things that 70s and 80s horror movies gave into. It, there was the I wouldn't say the tease, but there was
Right.
a build up, like there might be nudity. Like
Yeah.
the girls are, big-breasted, beautiful girls. But they never take their shirts off. Nothing ever happens like that, which was kind of nice in a way.
Do you know the story
because-
behind that?
Oh, please tell me.
This is great. Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. This is perfect. Okay,
Nice.
so there
I
is
like
a scene,
that.
like you said, there's a scene where they go skinny dipping. And it does. It
Oh,
kind of
right, yeah.
it sets it up where you're like, oh, they're gonna see something,
Yeah.
and then it cuts, and they're in the water, and you don't see anything, and you actually don't at all in the movie. But here's this is on IMDb. I found some facts and stuff, and this one made me laugh,
Facts.
or some trivia, whatever the word is. But the director,
Trivia is the word.
that's the word. Shush. The director, David Schmoeller, he was too bashful and embarrassed to bring it up with Tanya Roberts and the other actresses during casting about nudity. He didn't bring it up because he was too nervous. And so when they actually got to the lake scene to do the filming, he finally brought it up and said, "Hey, would you be willing, to do nude scenes?" And because they'd already signed the contract, they'd already done everything, they all said, "No, I'm not going to do it."
Good for them.
I know, right? It's awesome. And so there's no nudity in that movie. So they were originally going to, but he was too nervous to ask, which I think is fantastic. I actually love that story.
Yeah.
And they didn't do it. And I just think it's a funny story. I love it.
Now you know what else David Schmoeller directed, right?
Lay it on me. No.
Puppet Master.
The first one?
Yeah, the very first one.
What? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, wow.
And isn't
Actually,
that
a lot makes
DVD
sense.
box set you bought?
Yes.
I kept thinking, so Andrew at one point bought a DVD box set of all these movies, and it was like, what, $20 or something?
I think it was like
$10
$10 for like a lot of Puppet Master movies.
Yeah, and over the years I kept getting it confused, and I kept thinking it was Leprechaun.
Yes.
And so when I finally started to watch Leprechaun one time, I got so excited because Andrew had this box set, and then I called him, and he's like, no, I didn't get Leprechaun, Scotty. I got Puppet Master, you idiot. And I said, huh. He calls me that all the time.
I do not.
Okay, so let's go ahead and finally talk about the music.
Yes.
I know you touched on it with the mannequin, but holy crap. So the music was composed by an Italian composer named Pino Donaggio.
Yes.
And this guy has done some major movies. He did Body Double, he did Dressed to Kill.
Whoa, right on.
He's even done Seed of Chucky.
Oh, I did not know that. That's awesome.
I didn't know that going in. All I knew was that the music started during the opening credits, and I just had no idea what to think. It's the most slapsticky, weird music for a horror movie ever. But there's somewhat of an underlying menacing tone to part of that theme.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just the weirdest thing. And, then you get into the movie, and it becomes more regular kind of old horror movie music.
Mm-hmm.
But then it comes back. That theme comes back at the weirdest times. And I absolutely, at first I wasn't sure if I liked it. I ended up loving it.
Yep.
And as a matter of fact, I went to a record store yesterday. They had the soundtrack. I passed on it, but I'm probably going to go back this week and get it because it's too weird and too good not to have in my collection.
It really is. Yeah, it really is. Do yourselves, if you haven't watched the movie, at least do yourselves a favor and listen to the theme.
Yeah, it's available on Apple Music, so I'm sure it's available on Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It really is. It's one of the most unique pieces of music. One I've heard, but also for, like you said, for a horror movie, it's campy and silly, but I love how you said there's this dark undertone, and that is the best way to describe it.
Yeah. I mean, I listened to a little bit of it just preparing for this podcast, just to get in the mood.
Well, we liked it so much because we talked a little bit about it, and we thought, man, this would be kind of an awesome way to this would be an awesome song
goodness.
to start our podcast. Be the intro music. There's
that would have been
rights
great,
and regulations and all that, but boy, that would have been. Oh,
I mean, I even
awesome.
thought about reaching out to the composer, but then I saw the composer's he's a pretty big, well-known name, and I'm like, yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe we'll get lucky. Watch him listen to this podcast.
Yes, Pino Donaggio, if you're out there,
can we use your
and you
song?
hear this, yes, please give us permission to use the theme, the main title theme to Tourist Trap in our
Yes.
future podcasts.
I would
Oh
be
my
so
goodness.
happy.
All right, so what'd you think of the ending?
Oh man. I actually was talking to my wife about this today. I was talking about the ending.
Wait, did she watch it with you?
She did not. No. I
Okay.
was telling her I don't think she has any interest. but I was telling her kind of the story, and I was like, and the ending, like we said, it's confusing, but it's so I forget the boy's name. The surviving boy. We'll probably look it up.
The boy.
The
I think
fella.
he's a man. I think we can call him a man.
You're right. We can call him a man. Was it Jerry?
Was it Jerry?
It was Jerry. Yes, Jerry and Molly are two quote unquote,
Oh, yeah.
survivors. But Jerry is at the end with Molly, and Molly's just knocked out Davy, the bad guy.
Yeah.
And Jerry runs in. I forget what he says. He's, come on, we got to get out of here, kind of a thing. And she's freaking out, and the bad guy stands up and walks over to Jerry and rips his arm off because he's a mannequin. And at that moment, it was a moment I paused it and just went, what just happened?
Yeah.
What's going on? And then it just ends with her sitting there screaming.
No, wait, Jerry becomes a mannequin.
Yeah,
Didn't Jerry
right,
become
you're
a
right,
mannequin?
yes. Yeah, he's a mannequin. And then and then she's just screaming. And I think that's how it ends, with her kind of just sitting on the floor.
No, you're forgetting the very final scene.
Oh,
as the music
you're
plays,
right. Oh my gosh.
and you see Molly driving
Yes.
away in her car down the highway with her
Yes.
friends who have all been turned into mannequins in her car with her.
Oh, I can't believe I forgot that. That part was awesome.
It was beautiful, yeah.
That actually would be an amazing poster of her in the car with Tourist Trap. There we go. Oh, good call. Thank you, Scotty.
Yeah, it's such a weird ending, and yeah, it's confusing because the movie doesn't really set any rules as to why these people are becoming mannequins.
Right.
I mean, that's the confusing part. He's psychic, but so with his psychic abilities, he turns people into mannequins? What?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Or are they underneath that goop he puts on them? But if so,
But
then
no,
how did
they didn't all get goop put on them.
Exactly. So I don't know what that's about. Yeah, there's some plot holes, I guess, or some.
There were definite plot holes,
Yeah.
but I didn't hate that. I kind
agree.
of liked it.
Yep.
It to me it gives the movie a little bit of something. I don't know the word I'm looking for. Something I adored about the movie was that
I get you. I would agree with that. It almost makes it like a Grindhouse movie where half of it was cut out, because it got burned, like the old film or something. Like it gives it something special.
Yeah. Let's talk about any trivia that we know. Like, first of all, I'd like to mention that in the credits on IMDb, Linnea Quigley herself is mentioned as an uncredited mannequin.
Whoa.
Yeah. Linnea Quigley was one of the mannequins. And I hope everybody out there knows who Linnea Quigley is. She's one of the biggest scream queens ever in horror movie history.
So I wonder, well, I guess this was 79, so this was... Yeah, this was probably one of the first things
Yeah,
that she
absolutely.
did then.
Has to
that's
be.
awesome. Wow, random.
What else you got for me?
Oh, let me see. All right. I'm trying to see. There's so many good ones. But then there's other things that are like, John Van Ness did his own stunt when jumping through the window. Ooh.
Oh, that's nice.
Right, yeah, I know. I do love that Stephen King, who you adore and I love, but you...
Oh, he's my favorite.
You are a much bigger fan. One of the biggest I know, which I love.
It's not a competition.
Well, I know, but I do love that you love everything Stephen King. I think that's awesome. But he loved it. He loved the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Good.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think I read somewhere that the critics hated it. Of course, the big ones.
Always.
But yeah, of course they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another fun thing that I liked, the parents in it, the mannequin parents, are actually played by the director's parents, which I thought was kind of fun too. I always like stuff like that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, if you can get your family, friends in it, I just think that's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we don't really do a rating system because,
Right.
and this is another reason that Andrew and I love talking about movies so much, is that when I review a movie, I don't say, I don't give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I don't give it stars. But I talk about recommending the movie.
There. Yeah.
And it's not a question of whether or not I recommend a movie. I always recommend movies. I think my personal motto is that, not motto, but my personal theory is that there's an audience for every movie out there. No matter how bad the movie might be, there's an audience for it.
Right.
You can name any movie and you'll find somebody in the world that likes that movie,
Right. That's good.
even if they like it for being bad. So I guess our whole thing is, I don't know how to rate movies.
Well, it's
I
so
recommend this movie.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and like you said. I mean, it's so subjective that it's hard to. But yeah. Go ahead. What would you say, though?
I would just say, be prepared for a movie that is unclear as to what exactly is going on, but has a bunch of creepy moments.
Mm-hmm.
We'll figure out some kind of rating system at some point. But for now, if you haven't watched Tourist Trap and you're okay watching it after we just spoiled the crap out of it,
Right.
we told you what to be prepared for. So, I definitely recommend this movie.
I agree. I think it's like you said. I mean, it's there are some flaws, and there's some fantastic things in it. So I agree. I definitely, as a horror fan, I would absolutely recommend this. Absolutely.
Yay.
It's just fun. It's just a fun movie.
Yeah, Tourist Trap, 1978, 1979.
Yeah. Do yourself
Let's
a
look
favor.
that up real quick. Yeah.
It's 79.
79, yeah. 79, directed by David Schmoeller, starring Tanya Roberts and Chuck Connors and some other John Van Ness. Yeah, watch it.
Yes.
Okay, so we're about done here with our first podcast,
Yeah.
and that leaves one more item of business.
Yes.
So this is going to be the part of the podcast where one of us presents a movie to the other, and the other person either agrees or doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And we basically decide what movie we're going to watch during the next week. So, Andrew,
Yes.
since you chose Tourist Trap,
Yes, sir.
my movie for us to watch this week
Oh man.
is Spiral from the Book of Saw.
Ooh. Okay. Something new.
Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree.
Okay. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Next week, we will be talking about Spiral from the Book of Saw after we both watch it. And yes, this is what we're going to do. Sometimes there will be older movies. Sometimes there'll be brand new movies, you know? The beautiful thing about this podcast, I think, is that we have such a backlog of movies, and those include movies that have yet to come out. So when new movies come out, that may be our movie of the week.
Yep. Absolutely.
So yeah, Spiral from the Book of Saw, starring Chris Rock.
Beautiful.
All right. I guess anything else before we say goodbye?
Man, I just will say that this is fun. Honestly, this is such a blast.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this.
That's great.
It really is. This is a highlight of the week, and I am very excited to see this, to continue to do this with you.
And if anybody's, oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And if anybody's listening to this, please be kind. This is our very first podcast, so obviously there's going to be kinks that we have to work out.
Yes.
And it'll get better as we go on. I'm sure it'll tighten up and stuff like that. So
For sure.
Andrew.
Yes.
Oh, we will also have social media. So I guess at this moment we can say, if you would like to email us with any questions or movie ideas for us to do in the future, yeah, go ahead. You can email us at funwithhorrorpodcast@gmail.com.
Beautiful.
And that's all one word, funwithhorrorpodcast@gmail.com. So, Andrew, I love you.
I love you, Scotty. This was awesome.
Wow, there was a long pause there.
Well, no, I honestly, I even just thought
Such a
about
long
that.
pause.
You gave like the email, and you just like, you're so calm about it, and I was like, wow, he's really good at this. So I just paused there for a second, man. I really did. I promise, that's real.
You were so calm when you said the email address. How calm? How did you do that? Did you get into a moment of zen? You're like, this is my email moment of zen.
Well, you know me when I talk
Please
emails.
write
I yell
us. Wait, do it.
Got a Fun with Horror podcast.
Fun with Horror
podcast.
podcast.
Watch people fell asleep at night to this, and we just woke them up.
Yeah, this is just us BSing.
Yeah.
They're like, what? Oh, hi.
Oh, hey.
Oh yeah, Fun with Horror. Anyway, okay, so let's wrap this up. Okay,
All right.
Andrew, I'll talk to you later. I'll see you next week, or I'll talk to you next week.
Yes. Awesome.
We don't like saying goodbye.
I know. I don't want to say goodbye, but we want to say thank you as well to all that were listening, and that we would love.
Absolutely. Thank you to all three of you.
Yes. We might get 4. We would just love to have you watch the movie as well if you want, so that when you listen to the podcast next week, you can have just watched it and hear our notes on it. We think it'd be fun.
Yes.
Make a little community.
You can listen along. Everybody watch Spiraled from the Book of Saw.
Please.
It's the wait, is it the 9th Saw movie? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yep.
It is.
Yep.
The 9th Saw movie.
Man.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. I can't wait. All right, Andrew.
All right, Scotty. Thank you so much. This was a blast.
All right. Thank you for listening, everybody, and talk to you later.
Bye, everybody.
You're so pretty.
No, please, not again.
Why don't you like me?